Welcome to another edition of PENSDOWN. The pen is the tool of the journalist. On this show, we get journalists from any part of the world to drop their working tool, which is the pen, and then they become the newsmakers, not the reporters or presenters. This is where we tell it all the behind-the-scenes issues that affect journalists. We get them to talk about it here. Today, we are traveling to South Sudan. Some years ago, South Sudan was the youngest country in the world. I don't know if they have a younger brother or sister today. My guest will be telling me. My guest is the director of the Association for Media Development in South Sudan. You have the opportunity to read the rest of her profile on the screen while we go on with this conversation. Ayaa Irene Lokang is my guest on PENSDOWN today. Thanks for joining me on PENSDOWN.
Welcome. I'm happy to be hosted in the PENSDOWN today.
Right. I mentioned earlier that South Sudan, to me, some years ago, was the youngest country in the world. Is it still the youngest country, or there are other ones that have been born?
From my information, South Sudan is still the youngest country.
Right. Okay, great. But let's talk about journalism and you. How did you discover the journalist in you?
That started a bit earlier,
Okay.
when I was still a young girl.
Mm.
I started to admire journalism. Uh, of course, journalism by definition, because journalism by definition is storytelling, writing, of course, in form of storytelling, and speaking out, and listening more,
Mm.
and all the ingredients of journalism in me. I started discovering it a bit earlier when I was still a young girl.
Mm.
Let me say, at home, I used to like, telling stories. I used to also listen to stories. And I used to love writing. I really love writing. Everywhere I go, I just write, in the wall of the house, maybe on the compound, just, outside the compound. Even when I'm going to the garden, sometimes I just write my name on the road, or just write anything that I love to write. So, but when I was going to university, uh, I didn't select journalism.
Okay.
I wanted to, yes, I wanted to go for teaching. I wanted to become a
Oh,
teacher. I wanted to
okay.
go for education.
Mm.
Yeah, but then when I applied, later when the results came out for admission, I
Mm.
was admitted for journalism.
Wow.
And so, yes. So my brother encouraged me that, yes, I think you have journalism in you, and
Mm.
I think you can make a very good journalist when you go for this course. So you just go for it. I will support you. So that
Ha-
is when I joined Kampala International University
Okay.
in 2007 to study journalism and mass communication.
How long has it been since you started this journalism journey?
I started right away when I joined Kampala International University. I started doing journalism because at the school there was a newspaper or a journal, a student
Mm.
journal
Mm.
called the Giraffe. So I
Okay.
used to file stories for the Giraffe, just looking at the campus life, writing stories about things that happens within the campus. So I started filing stories for the Giraffe. just to ensure that apart from just the theoretical lessons that I learned in class, I
mm,
also have to start trying to practice, cultivate the writing skills in me, and so that by the time I graduate, I can be ready to just start working in the field. And so after graduating in 2010, I started looking for jobs in the media houses, but normally media houses do not trust graduates that just came from school,
mm,
because a lot of teachings that we learn in schools of journalism or mass communication, is more of theoretical. So it is hard to just pick a fresh graduate to come and start working in your media houses. It is really very hard. So normally, when you graduate, you start by maybe doing internship, or you start volunteering, just doing your work out there.
mm,
Because even during that time, 2010, when we graduated, social media was not yet too
mm,
much in part of this world.
mm,
So not many people were in social media, and we did not know that you could actually practice your journalism just independently, write and post your articles or whatever you do on social media. It was not that way. So for you to really be recognized or to be known as a journalist, you have to get a media house, and so you start working there. But it was hard for some of us to get that. So I started by I love gender.
okay,
I don't know why. I don't know why. Maybe because of I'm a woman, but I really I pick my attention in gender. So I
mm,
started, writing gender related stories, and
mm,
sometimes I write opinion on gender, and then I just send out to newspaper. And then most of them got published on Juba Monitor. There is a local there used to be a local newspaper in South Sudan, a very
mm,
popular one called Juba Monitor. And so I used to file my stories, sometimes opinion, and send to Juba Monitor, and it got published. And so I tried around, but I couldn't really get a job with a media house, but at least I tried doing my own stories
mm,
and as a freelancer, and they got published many times. And so in 2013, I got a job with Association for Media Development in South Sudan, where
okay,
I am now. I got a job in 2013 around March. I still remember the day. It was on 4th of March 2013. That
wow,
is when I got a job as a media development officer for
okay,
Association for Media Development in South Sudan, AMDIS.
mm,
It is an umbrella association that brings together media houses, independent media houses in South Sudan. So I was so privileged to get that job. I became so happy because the association has members who are senior editors and senior
mm,
journalists working for various media houses, and
mm,
they come together and form the association, and then they become board members of the association.
mm,
And so they are board members, but I was recruited to join the secretariat. We have a secretariat. And
okay,
so the secretariat do the work of training journalists, organizing training for journalists, organizing advocacy conferences, meetings,
mm,
roundtables, to kind of roundtables to advocate for freedom of expression, and also roundtable to build capacity of local journalists, because by then we all know the history of South Sudan, that it
yeah,
came from Sudan.
Sudan, that's right,
Yes. So, yes, it came from Sudan, and many journalists by then, they did not go through formal training in
Okay.
journalism or mass communication. Many of them started practicing because they love journalism. They have qualification in other field, but
Mm.
not necessarily journalism. And some did not even have qualification as just, but they were maybe they could not go far with their education
Yeah.
because of the conflict and here and there. So they joined journalism. So there was a lot. There was a need for training
Mm.
really in journalism, and there was serious needs for advocacy to ensure that the environment for the media, for the independent media and journalism was ensured. So when I joined, I got to be mentored by these senior journalists, and I started working. I started organizing trainings. We trained a lot of journalists,
Mm.
those who were already working and those who were aspiring to become journalists. Yeah. So
Okay.
yes,
Now
I
your
could still
story,
write also stories. I
your
could still
story
also
is
write stories.
okay. Your story is quite an interesting one. When I look back at when South Sudan was formed, that is on the 9th of July 2011, it means that you traveled to Kampala University as a Sudanese and returned as a South Sudanese. Am I right?
Yes.
Great. Now, these years you have been in journalism or you have been doing media related work. Will you say journalism pays? Does it pay?
Uh, in terms of money, it doesn't pay. Um, but in term, it is so fulfilling to
Hmm.
us. You find that in South Sudan, I know in Ghana because I visited also Ghana and I heard their stories. But
Yeah,
in
during the
South
World
Sudan,
Press Freedom Day, I think you were here.
yes, and
Okay.
not only that, I was also there in 2016 during a town hall
Okay.
organized, I think, yeah. So in South Sudan, journalism do not pay. The
Okay.
economy is very bad, and the media houses are struggling.
Hmm.
They are struggling because they have the interest
Hmm.
to inform people,
Yeah.
uh, to give hope to people,
Hmm. Hmm.
so they cannot close down. That they
Yeah.
are struggling, not close down. So most journalists and each of every journalist, for you to practice, you have to be driven by that passion, and also by the need to serve the people, because the people
Hmm.
need information. As currently South Sudanese are still scattered all over the world.
Hmm.
We have people in refugee camp. Even we have internally displaced people living within the country, but they are um, in IDP camps.
Hmm.
So these people need information, and they need information every day to make decision about their daily lives. They need information to know whether the peace that the parties have signed is going to hold, or are we going back to war. They need information as to where are they now free to come back home. Can they now come back from refugee camps to go back to their original places and start settling? So every day they open their radio station, they read newspapers, they want to see information about that. And that drive you journalists, even though you don't get paid, it drives you that your community is out there looking for information. So why
Hmm.
not uh, sacrifice and do the work and continue to give them the kind of information they need,
Now let
apart
me
from
pick
pay.
this specifically from you.
Yes,
COVID-19 has very terribly hit the print media aspect of media. That is, print
yes,
media specifically suffered greatly when COVID-19 fell on us. What is the story of the print media in South Sudan post COVID-19?
What can I say now? We had more than 20
Mm.
newspapers
Okay.
in South Sudan.
Mm.
Yes, since the independence. But
Okay.
then currently we have uh, about 5 newspapers
Oh, wow.
in the country. Imagine where are the 15 or more than 15? Where are they?
Mm.
These newspapers started dying down. Some of them were closed, of course. Some of them started struggling and they died down because it started with the conflict,
Mm.
and it came, the conflict now led to the economic crisis.
Yeah.
And then COVID 19 came, whereby business were not the same as usual.
Yeah.
Yeah, so with lack of space, we are struggling even in terms of infrastructure. You find that
Mm.
journalists in one media house, they all sit maybe in one room, but during COVID-19 it was hard. They could not now come together, so things became very difficult. A lot of journalists left the field because with our poor pay, you cannot even save money. You have to continue working like every month. You can't really save. So
Mm.
it's like when you're not working just for 1 month, you are already out. You
Mm.
cannot now even cater for your family.
Yeah.
So COVID-19 forced many journalists even to leave the field because they had to find another way of catering for their families. And so the media houses also started to lack human resource. And so that's why we are now having these few newspapers, but
Mm.
also we have a lot of stories. But you find that even them to send their journalists to gather these stories, to go deep in the communities to get stories is not easy,
Mm.
because they cannot facilitate in terms of transport, they cannot
Yeah.
facilitate in terms of accommodation, and they cannot also cater for basic safety needs of journalists.
Mm.
So you find that journalists just, operate just within a very small area,
Mm.
just get the information, and mostly they go for press conferences. Yeah, because that is what cannot take a lot of resources for them to move
Mm.
around. So
Mm.
mostly they get stories from press conferences. And of course, with press conferences, people decide what to tell you and what not to tell you. So
Yeah.
you cannot really dig the story that you want.
Mm.
So we really operate on average. We cannot go deep. We cannot get the voice of the people down in the
Mm.
community.
Now, in the peculiar case of South Sudan, with conflict situations here and there and economic challenges, how difficult is it to practice journalism in such a terrain?
It is very difficult to
Mm.
practice journalism in the situation of this economic crisis.
Mm.
I will start with
Okay.
media
Mm.
houses. It
Mm.
is very difficult for media manager even to think that tomorrow they will still be on air, or to think that tomorrow they will still operate. It's very difficult because in our environment, uh, most media houses use that is the source of power in most cases in South Sudan. So with generator, you have to think of fuel. Every day you have to think about fuel, where you're going to get your fuel from and all that. And you have staff to pay, which is always the last thing that media managers think about. The last thing is to pay the staff. But the priority is to get generator fuel there, and to get we also have registration by the authorities. We have
Okay.
media authority, communication authority. You also have to put that aside, because those are the things that without which you will not be operating. And you have to also think about rent, because most
Okay.
media houses do not have a place, office space of their own. You need to think about rent. And so those are the reality that media houses have to first put in place before even they start thinking of welfare of their reporters. So by the time they think about the welfare, it is almost when the budget is almost exhausted.
Mm,
And so now we also have things to do with now facilitation of journalists to go to the field, maybe to go, because we have communities that even to reach them, you have to maybe go by road, but we have insecurity already on ground,
yeah.
whereby sometimes you can't even go to your own village because by road, because the insecurity won't allow you.
Mm,
And so it will be even more risky for a journalist, you see. um, and then yeah, so those are the realities. So you find that it is really very, very difficult with this economic crisis. The programs that is, for example, some radio stations, they run from 6 a.m. in the morning up to maybe 10 p.m. in the evening.
mm,
So the rest of the time at night up to morning, early morning, it is not running because they are trying to save fuel for the next day. And so even some days you find that when they don't have fuel totally, they go up. They don't have to operate because they cannot afford the fuel until again when they get fuel, then, then they come back. So
wow.
you find that the listeners who are very angry for information, they start
Yeah.
even calling your phone as a journalist, asking you, why are you not on air today? Why are you not operating
Mm,
today? And sometimes they say, is it the issue of insecurity or what? So you find that you have
yeah.
both the economic crisis and also the insecurity
Yeah.
affecting you. Yes.
Okay. Now, personally, is there any single assignment that you consider as the most challenging in your career?
Personally, uh, the most difficult challenge is, for example, as AMDIs, normally we advocate for media houses and journalists.
Mm,
So there are a lot of situations when a journalist is arrested,
mm-hmm.
and also when a newspaper is closed down.
Okay.
So in that situation, as AMDIs, the public expects a statement from you to tell the
Mm-hmm.
truth, what
Yeah.
exactly happened to this journalist
Mm,
or what exactly happened to this media house.
mm,
So for me, that is the most difficult situation, especially when the issue is sensitive. When
okay.
the issue involved is sensitive, it is the most difficult, because in that way the government will not want you to say the truth
Mm,
of what exactly happened, because it may they would say that it would incite the public
okay.
on maybe the authority that arrested the journalist or closed the media house. So sometimes and of course there will be pressure from the community, there will be pressure from the journalist community. They want you to make a statement. Why are you quiet? I'm this. Why are you quiet? And then you are like, if I go quiet, it shows that I'm not doing my work
Yeah.
as a media advocate, as a
Yeah.
media rights advocate. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you just have to say it. You just have to make a statement. And when you make a statement, I tell you that night will be a very long night because you
Wow.
will be stressed, you will be turning on your bed,
Yeah.
waiting for what will be happening after
Mm, mm,
what you have said. So for me, that has been always the most difficult
mm.
time because the pressure will be too much
Yeah.
on you. Yes,
Um, in the line of duty professionally, how
yes.
many times has your life been threatened for the work you do, or for some statement you made, or for a position you took?
Um, I sometimes it is not a direct threat, but
Mm,
you could just see from you can read from the line that
yeah.
this is a threat. Yes. There are issues that it is very hard to report
Mm,
in South Sudan. For example, human right violations.
okay.
Uh, uh, Talking about maybe sexual harassment
Mm-hmm.
or other human right violations. Those are
Yeah.
very difficult to write about as a
Mm,
journalist. And so there was one time I talked about sexual harassment.
mm,
Yes, and there was a kind of negotiation or dialogue. Let me say
mm,
dialogue. There was a dialogue. So I was invited to talk about how the media cover sexual harassment in South
mm,
Sudan. So I
mm.
was just talking about how the media cover sexual harassment. And then, yeah, so after my presentation, and it was good, it was in the public, and it was,
Mm,
so the people that were, some of the participants started
okay.
asking me, they started pointing fingers at me. They said, you are the people who are spoiling this country. You are the people who gives wrong names about
Wow.
this country. Yes. So, and good enough, my colleagues were there, civil society organization was there, and those people were calling my name. They said, Ayaa, Ayaa, you are the people. You are the people who are always sending wrong information
Mm,
about this country. And you know, I don't know, how do you feel to betray this country? So for me, that was really so serious
mm,
to me. Yeah,
mm,
because what I presented there was how the media, I was presenting on behalf of the media, how we do cover the
okay.
issues of sexual harassment. Yeah, so
Mm,
it turned out that it was not really, people don't really liked it. And so and those who were calling my name in public, they are people who are putting on uniform.
mm. Yeah. Yeah.
Yes.
I can
So,
understand.
yes. So that gave me a kind of, to start thinking like, did I make any mistake of accepting to go and speak on behalf of the media in this
Mm,
forum, or what should I do? But anyway, I have been an advocate, the work that we do at AMDIS, so I cannot run away from it. And I ask myself, if I don't do it, who then will do it? Because
mm,
I have done the most difficult work even more than this, but maybe I was not confronted, but this time I have confronted for this. So I think I just have to continue. I just
mm.
have to continue because that is part of building immunity. Because at certain point you have to face those kind of challenges in
Yeah.
order to build your immunity to become more stronger as an advocate for free media.
From the narrative you have given me, I get the strongest impression that attrition in journalism is very high in South Sudan. That is, you have a lot of professionals, some of them very well qualified and experienced, who keep leaving the profession from time to time. Are there any other causes apart from the issues of economic and insecurity that could be contributing to the high rate of attrition?
Sorry, come again
Okay,
with the
so
question.
my question is, from the narrative you have given me, I get the strongest impression that attrition in journalism in South Sudan will be very high. So many professionals will be leaving the field, moving into other things like public relations or corporate communications or anything other than journalism. Apart from the issues of the economic and security issues you mentioned, are there any other factors that might be contributing to this high rate of attrition in journalism?
I cannot say there are other major factors. The
Mm,
two are the major factors. The issue of insecurity on journalists,
mm,
not only on journalists, but on every South Sudanese. And then the issue of economic crisis.
mm,
Yeah, because yeah, I can say that people have already been leaving the field, either for one reason or another, either because of the economic challenges. We have a lot of colleagues who
mm,
are now with the NGO world,
mm.
and these are colleagues who used to really be very good journalists in terms
Okay.
of very professional journalists. Yeah, but then they have good skills, but the skills was not paying them well, so
Mm,
they left for NGO world, and we know them. They are already there, but also we have people who have left the country because they felt that their life was threatened. So
mm,
they also left, and they are now in other countries. They are now maybe practicing from there online, and
mm,
and of course their practice is now limited. They cannot write a lot of stories about South Sudan because it is even hard for them to cross check their facts.
yeah.
As a journalist, you need to be on ground at
Mm,
time in order to cross check your facts. So it has limited them. Yeah. And I can say that people will always leave because there are people who would leave for greener pasture. And
mm.
that is not only in journalism, even in other
Okay.
fields. But in journalism, it is very, very common,
Mm,
especially people who are highly skilled. They
mm,
find themselves already not fitting in the job market of journalism, because the pay is now very low for them to take care of their basic needs and even the needs of their family. And
mm.
South Sudan is one of the economy is also very expensive.
Yeah.
The Yes, it is very expensive. So it's either you decide to continue in that kind of life, and then your children maybe will go to very poor schools,
Mm,
and also you cannot really take care of your family properly, or you decide to quit and go to another field. That one is always there. uh, Amdis has been trying to address the issue of journalist turnover,
okay.
journalists leaving the field
Mm,
and going for another field. So we have a school within AMDIS
okay.
called Media Development Institute. You
Okay.
can see from my biography, I
Yeah.
was a principal of that school
Okay.
within AMDIS. Yeah. So the Media Development Institute is offering 1 year course in journalism.
Mm,
So normally we pick even fresh graduates, those who have completed maybe secondary school
mm.
or even university graduates who are interested to join journalism. So we pick
Okay.
them,
Mm,
and the institute is graduating journalists every year.
okay.
So every year we graduate journalists. So it is now through the institute that media houses are able to pick uh,
Okay.
fresh graduates to kind of train now
Mm,
to work in their media houses.
okay.
So had it been that we did not have Media Development Institute, it would be very, very difficult for media houses to operate, because at time you find in a media house, you find 5 or 6 journalists leaves, and then there is that vacuum that they are
Yeah.
left. And so every year at least MDI will send interns to media houses, and those interns now are mentored within those media houses, and they become journalists within that media houses. So that is the kind of uh,
Okay.
yeah, the kind of mitigation that we are trying to do to cover
Right.
up the gaps that is being left here.
When you started practicing in 2007, social media was not that pronounced. You mentioned that earlier on. Today, social media occupies a certain prominent position in journalism. How has social media changed the practice of journalism?
In South Sudan, social media is now very common, and now because now a lot of people now tend to scroll over social media and get updates about things that are happening. Yeah, because we have issue of censorship in
Okay.
South Sudan. Yeah, for the mainstream media.
Mm.
But with social media, everybody is almost a journalist. And
That's right.
so whenever something happen in their community, they will just take pictures and write something on social media. And so people get those information. And sometimes they get that information and they come to cross-check whether also the mainstream media has covered such kind of information. And in most cases, there are certain information that the mainstream media cannot cover. They just fear because, yeah, they just fear because they fear that if they cover, they may reach closer. There is that self-censorship. So
Yes.
they may risk closer, yeah. So they don't cover, and then people now go to social media to get those kind of information. So you find that even journalists themselves, they go to social media to find information that they will not find in the mainstream media.
Yeah.
Talk of, I mean radio or even newspaper. So yeah, but also social media also in South Sudan is now being viewed as a platform for spreading hate speech.
Okay.
Because a lot of people, when they have disagreement with other people, they also go on social media and start spreading, pouring their heart, like saying whatever they wanted to
Yeah.
say. Yeah, so that is another negative side of social media. And also we have people in the diaspora that they of course they are angry for the reason that they are not within the country, and maybe things are not going on as they expected. They also pour their heart on social media, and they share their opinion. And on ground, you find that the government can say that, yeah, these are people who are just spreading rumors. They are against you. They don't want peace in this country and all that.
Yeah.
So yeah. So people they get a lot of information from social media, but they are also informed that social media is a platform for hate speech, for incitement of violence and all that. But still, yes, a lot of people use.
There is a practice in journalism across a number of African countries. When you go for an event or press conference or any form of media engagement, or even when you go to interview a newsmaker, afterwards they'll give you some money in an envelope. In Nigeria, they call it the brown envelope. In Cameroon, it is called the brown envelope. Malawi calls it logistics. Liberia calls it professional services. In Ghana, they call it SOLI, which is the short form for solidarity. Is that is that a practice in South Sudan? And what is the name you give to it? If it is a practice, I want to have your take on it. What is your position on that practice?
In South Sudan, they call it TR.
TR.
TR is, yeah, TR is transport refund. They call it TR and FR.
FR is what?
They also call it is food refund. Yeah. So it is very, very common.
Mm,
And I know the reason. The reason is because I already talked about the payment of journalists in South
yes,
Sudan.
yes.
And I told you that it is the last list of media houses. That
Mm,
is the last. They
mm,
think about that will not make them to operate fast if they don't have. They've put in place that.
yeah.
And when they have all budget left, that is when now they start thinking of paying journalists.
Mm,
Sometimes journalists go for months without being paid.
mm,
And so if you have that kind of journalist, I always tell people that a journalist going to work on an empty stomach
mm,
and also footing, walking to work. And at the end of the day, going home when the children have not eaten, you don't expect that journalist to be objective because an angry stomach can do anything, can accept anything. When the money is there, they don't reject. And in South Sudan, some of the journalists are asking, even if you are not giving, if you don't have a budget for TR or FR, they will ask you, where is TR, where is FR? If FR or TR is not there, we are not going to write this story, you see? So we have had a lot of these stories where this happens, and some of the newsmaker they even come to us and they ask us whether we are still practicing the professional journalism or the principle of professional journalism, because to them it is already not there when journalists are now the one asking for TR or FR. Yeah, so what can I say as a human being first is that for sure, for sure, you don't expect an empty stomach to be objective.
mm,
So that comes back now to the media managers and the like of AMDIS where I work for. What is our plan for journalism in South Sudan? Because um, the authority also tells us many times that we arrest your journalists, arrest them because they are not professional. We do this because they are not professional. We
mm,
can even revoke their accreditation because they are not professional. So we are not professional in a way where now we are asking for TR, and we run the story based on the tiara which is given or which is not given. So we have to start thinking on how to safeguard the professional journalism to stop brown envelope or what they call tiara. And
yes.
we cannot just stop it when we cannot pay journalists well. The question for South Sudan is now that because there is an anticipated election at the end of this year in
Okay.
December.
Mm,
We are not sure yet, but of course, according to the peace agreement, at the
mm,
end of this year, South Sudan is expected to organize general elections.
mm,
For the media, I worry a lot because we are not even able to facilitate our journalists to just go and cover daily news. What about covering election? Are we really ready to cover election? Are we going to leave our crew in the hands of, in the mercy of the political parties who will be going around to do their campaign? Are we just going to say, these are our crew, please take care of them? And what kind of stories do we expect from those journalists who are going to be taken care of by political parties or politicians? What articles are we going to expect out of it? So it is a huge challenge in
Yeah.
South Sudan now. It is a very huge challenge because I can't blame media houses because we are operating in an environment, economic environment, which is not doing well.
Yeah.
And you cannot expect the media sector to start doing well in this kind of economic environment. It will not happen. Yes. Another thing is we are heavily depending on donor money.
Okay.
AMDIs, the other media houses who at least run a news program, they depend on donor money.
Okay.
There are media houses who do not depend on donor money. You cannot even tune to them if you want serious programs. For them, they will be running music, they will be playing music, and they talks about this celebrity lifestyle. They get maybe money from there because they get
Yeah.
maybe advertisement from
Yeah.
those social events, and they don't focus on program, educative programs, news program, and all that. That is understandable because they are not supported, and therefore they look for their own way of survival, and maybe they find their way of survival in broadcasting, social life, and music, and all that. But those that are somehow supported by donor, who depend heavily on donor money, and tomorrow if the donor said we are no longer happy in this country, we are packing and going, I'm afraid even the media, those media houses will pack and just close,
Yeah.
because where will they start from? So there is a think of sustainability, and what are we even sustaining? You cannot sustain what you don't have.
That's right.
So yeah, so we need to first think about diversifying
Okay.
the media, yeah, the media environment, the sector, from heavily depending on donor to thinking of, we have a lot of resources in South Sudan. We have a lot of resources. We have oil, we have other minerals. We also have animals. We have a lot of cows. Sometimes we marry with 500 cows in South Sudan. Those are resources that, if used properly, we can take care of ourselves. We have very fertile lands,
Yeah.
but we even have very vast land. South Sudan is a very large and big country, but we are squeezed in a very small place. The media houses do not even have piece of land of their own, and they rent. I don't know for how long will we continue to rent. So we still need a lot of things to think about and put in place, and improve the welfare of journalists, and then we can now start thinking of professional journalists.
Right. In a few years, you will be 2 decades. That is 20 years in journalism generally. If we are to go back into time 20 years, are you still going to choose journalism or you do something else?
The needs for journalism is even becoming higher and higher. And for me, I will still choose journalism. Yes.
So these almost 20 years, what will you say represent your golden memories?
Um, I have accomplished a lot of things in
Okay.
the media sector.
Mm,
Yeah, for the gender that I am so passionate about,
mm,
I have founded Female Journalists
mm,
Network. It's a network of female journalists that is now operational, fully registered, and we registered it in 2018, and now we have staff. I have other board members, and I will be retiring from Female Journalists Network this May.
mm,
We are going to organize a general assembly
mm.
where I will step down, and the members will elect a new chairperson for Female
Okay.
Journalists Network. And the network has done a lot of work within the few years that got established.
Mm,
During those days, it was very hard for you to see women in journalism. There were
mm,
very few women in journalism. And also, there were very few stories written about women. Women were not had in the media, and they were not also in the media. But when we formed Female Journalists Network, we introduced profiling of women leaders, and
okay.
uh, and so we have profiled a number of women leaders, and most of them got appointed in government, and
Okay.
also they got some, they got other opportunities, even with NGOs. They became like role models, and they were traveling in many states of South Sudan to talk about their stories, to inspire other women or girls. And so for me, I see that as a huge success for me, because I'm going to retire, and I believe that Female Journalist Network will continue to operate and will continue to inspire young women to join journalism. I have also advocated for women to join journalism, because in South Sudan, people did not think that journalism was good for women.
Mm,
They think culturally, they think that a woman is not fit to be a journalist, because as a journalist, you talk to so many people, you appear on television, you talk on radio, people call you, you travel in many parts of the country and even abroad. So you forget your role as a woman, and also you get exposed. And so they didn't like their daughters and wives to join journalism.
mm,
But we reach out to even parents to talk to them, and I use myself as a person who can show
mm,
to them that a woman can be a journalist, and can do a lot of work that even men may not do. So I am so satisfied with what I have done on gender, and I'm so happy. In terms of also advocacy for media freedom, I have done a lot of work.
mm,
My advocacy has also led for release of many journalists from detention, because practically I used to follow journalist cases even to the national security, which is a fiat place. I used to follow
mm,
one of the biggest journalists that I followed his case. And even authority were wondering. They tell me that, Irene, you are a very young person. Why do you want to risk your life? This person that you are trying to advocate for his freedom, has lived his life, and he
yeah.
is now almost retiring. So
Mm,
you leave this case, go and relax, go and live your life, and just continue with your other work. Leave this case. This case is too complicated for you. But I followed, and when the person was released, he was very, very happy, and really, since that time, he told me that, women are very, very strong.
mm,
Uh, he was saved by his mother those days, and I was the second woman who saved him also. So
wow.
the way he views his perspective on women really
Mm,
changed totally. Yeah,
mm,
so I also feel good about that because it has also shown to me, because if I had any doubt that women cannot do it, uh, that time when I really followed the case of this man, because I first called people, because normally as a media development officer, by then when I was in that position, when a journalist is arrested, I
Mm,
call people whom we could go with to listen to the case. But in that case, I called people and they told me, some of them told me that, Irene, we cannot go to follow that case. Do you know what? Do you know the story that this person has written? I said, yes, I know, because that journalist, and he's now late, is called Alfred
okay.
Taban. Maybe you have heard about him.
Yeah.
That article that made him to be arrested was when he wrote an opinion article on his newspaper, because he was the editor of Juba Monitor.
Okay.
He wrote calling for removal of Riek Machar, the former
Okay.
vice president, and
Mm,
President Kir, the president. So, to my colleagues and to many people in South Sudan, they will say that that is a no-zone area.
wow, wow, wow.
Yes.
You know,
Yeah. So,
recently I hosted
yeah.
one woman, female journalist. She's a Gambian in the Tafa Sose. She also
Yes.
confronted Yaya Jammeh's government in about the most brutal manner. She rose to become
Yes.
president of the Gambia Press Union. Yaya Jammeh's hitmen chased her from Gambia to Senegal to Mali to Burkina Faso, Zimbabwe, so many, but somehow she survived. I am beginning to
Yes.
see a lot more of her in you with the kind of things you have also done. Because really, in your kind of environment, an article like that is considered treasonable, more or less. So
That's true.
your colleagues' decision not to be part was more or less understandable. They chose the safety first rule. But then you decided that, okay, I will go to the king. If I perish, I perish. Now that was a lot.
Exactly.
That
Yeah.
was a lot
And do
for
you
a
know when
woman.
that happened?
Yes.
Listen, even the environment when that happened was in 2016,
Oh, wow.
when the fight just happened in Juba.
Mm,
And that article was in relation to a fight that happened in one of the counties in South Sudan,
mm,
which was really a very bad fight.
mm.
And in that environment, during that time, people were leaving Juba.
Oh,
A lot of people were leaving Juba, and most of my colleagues had left. But for me, I said, I'm not going to leave until Alfred Taban is released. So I stayed around, and during that time, I had a small baby, and it was an environment that was really not good for young children.
yeah.
And so I said because we used to work with him to national security to
Okay.
ask for release of journalists. And
Mm,
so when he was arrested, I said, if I don't ask for his release, who will ask for his release? And he had
yeah.
asked for release of many journalists before. This is his turn to be arrested. I have to stay back and make him release first before now I go for my safety. So it was actually a journey of I was not so sure what will happen,
Yeah.
but I had a hope in me that I need to, because he has done a lot of things. He
Mm,
started fighting for the free media in the Sudan.
mm,
Um, he did a lot in the Sudan, and he was arrested several times. He suffered those arrests associated, treatment in jail and all that. And I knew that in South Sudan, maybe it was going to be long because of the kind of story he wrote. And I never want to lose him, because also
mm.
he was having some health related issues.
Okay.
He was having some illness, and it
Mm,
was only his family that could take care of him.
mm.
And moreover, even his family was denied from seeing him when he was
Wow.
arrested. So, so I felt that because already I used to go there a lot and the security
Okay.
knew me.
Mm.
So maybe I felt that I could be the only person who could be allowed there because my face is already familiar there. We used to go with him a lot. So if I leave him, even he himself there, he will not feel okay.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
could, yeah, thinking that Irene could be the person to come here and she's not coming. Why? Yeah.
You mentioned earlier on, you said something about media accreditation. Are journalists in South Sudan accredited or licensed before they can practice? Is that what you meant?
Yes. Before the accreditation was not there.
Okay.
Um, but last year, the Media Authority, which is a regulatory body of the
Okay.
media in South Sudan, issued a circular
Mm.
calling for all the journalists, both local and international,
Mm.
to go for accreditation, to apply for accreditation,
Mm.
meaning that they gave even deadlines for the accreditation.
Mm.
And but then later now, the accreditation is open now.
Okay.
So, uh, meaning that if you do not have accreditation, you
Mm.
cannot practice as a journalist in South Sudan.
Mm.
So,
Is the
which
accreditation a
has
form of
already started.
license? Will you call it as a
Yeah,
form
it
of
is.
license?
It is.
And is it
It
renewable?
is.
Does it expire?
Yeah, it is renewable. It is every year. You renew it every year. So it is a license in a way that there is a card. When your accreditation is approved, they give you an accreditation card.
Okay.
And therefore, you use that accreditation card to access, the field. If you want
Okay.
to go and cover stories, you have
Mm.
to show the accreditation. Yes, if you want to go for press conferences, you show accreditation. And so,
What
if
is
for
your take on that accreditation? What do you think of it?
what the media authorities say, let me start with what they say. What they say
Okay.
is that the accreditation is to organize the media because there are people who will just come and start practicing and they will
Mm.
say that I am a journalist. So the accreditation to them
Mm.
will now is the form of identification that this is a journalist.
Okay.
So that means if somebody comes to you and
Mm.
say, I want to interview you, then that person has to show that they are accredited.
Mm.
If they are not accredited, then you yourself, you can say that, no, where is your accreditation? Show me your accreditation. If you
Mm.
don't have, I cannot talk to you. Yeah, to them, they said it is a form of identifying so that people don't take advantage of the media to just go and get information from people.
Mm.
To me, I have a mixed feeling about it.
Yeah.
In one way, I can say that it is a good practice if
Mm.
it is going to organize the media,
Okay.
because we have issues in South Sudan whereby we have issue to do with incitement of violence and hate
Okay.
speech. There are people who come to the media just to spread hate speech, propaganda, inside, and maybe they are paid by certain people to do that.
Mm. Mm.
So if at all media authority is going to safeguard the media in that way, for me, I will say there is no problem.
Okay.
But my problem will be when a professional journalist get that accreditation,
Mm.
and then for writing critical stories, the
Yes.
accreditation is withdrawn.
Mm.
That is where I will have problem. Or maybe, for example, if they already know that Irene is that journalist who like writing critical stories about government, and we are not going to give her accreditation,
Yeah.
because giving her accreditation will give her now the chances now to write whatever she wants. So that one is also is gonna be bad if that is going to happen. So ever since the accreditation process has started, as AMDIS, we have been asking journalists, uh, did you get accreditation? Some of them said yes. We said, what was the process?
Mm.
And those one who are denied accreditation were asked, because Media Authority also came up with the criteria for you to get
Okay.
accreditation. One of the tough criteria is for you to have a formal certificate in journalism at
Mm.
least for 1 year.
Okay.
1 year. Yes. So if you don't have a formal training, at least for 1 year in journalism, Media Authority won't give you the accreditation. And
Even
we
if you
have
have
many
15 years
journalists,
experience.
even if you have 15 years or 20, 30 years experience, they will
Mm.
not give you. And now these are the cases we are now having. We have many of our senior journalists
Mm.
who do not have formal training in journalism, and they have been practicing well. We know their stories, we know what they have done, but they
Yeah.
are not given the accreditation because they do not have uh, the minimum qualification in journalism that the Media Authority has. So these people have now come to us, AMDIS, and they have gone to the Union of Journalists to ask now, why are we not giving? What are you people doing? What is AMDIS doing? What is Union doing to ensure that we who have been practicing for 20 years, 10 years, 15 years, and we know the business of journalism, and we have never been, um, arrested for unprofessional work. We have been
Mm-hmm.
doing our work professionally. What is happening? What are we? Do you want to surrender us to go back to school in order to get this
Mm.
accreditation? So this is the discussion that is currently taking place.
Okay.
Uh, we are looking at, okay, yes, we know there are people who have practiced for a long time. Should we ask Media Authority to include in their criteria that if you have practiced maybe for 15 years or 10 years and above
Mm.
or 5 years above, you can get the accreditation even if you don't have formal training in journalism. So, and we are also discussing what could be the significance of that negatively and positively. What will that happen?
I
So
take
that
it
is
that
already.
I take it that there was no broad consultation on who qualifies to get accreditation before the media authority brought it out.
There was no consultation with the media stakeholders.
Okay, I see.
Yes, with the journalists, a journalists union or professional association, they were
Mm.
not consulted. Yes.
Maybe this is going to be my final question. Bribery is like a landmine in the line of duty of a journalist. Has there been times you have been approached with anything, bribery, in the line of duty just to compromise a position you have taken professionally?
Um, I don't recall any time when I was bribed.
Okay.
Yes, but there are discussions
Mm.
that some people call me
Mm.
and just explain.
Mm.
You cannot do this thing because it will be like this. You cannot do this thing. Please think about me. Think about this and all that. So those kind of discussions have happened,
Okay.
but not bribe. Yes.
Mm. Mm. Are you in the media for life? or there's going to be divorce at a point?
Um, I will be in the media, but because I see that right now I am a director of AMDIS,
Okay.
and after that I choose what I want to do. But
Mm,
in any case, if I will not have an active role,
mm.
um, maybe in any position, but I will still remain in the media. I will maybe contribute in form of being a board of a media organization, and but I intend to remain in the media.
Will you encourage any mentee, somebody who looks up to you, or even your own child who walks up to you one day and says, I want to become a journalist? Is the person getting your blessing? If yes, what will you tell the person to do as a way of approaching journalism differently?
First of all, I have those who have come to me many times,
Mm,
and they want to be journalists. I have, as I speak now, I have girls who dropped out of whatever they were doing. Some
okay.
were studying, medical. Some were going to become medical doctors.
Mm,
Some were, studying nursing, and others were studying, environmental issues. And they dropped, and they came to MDI to become journalists. Now they
okay.
are journalists.
Mm,
So I have been mentoring so many, even through the Female Journalist Network. What I tell them, I first asked, even those who dropped out and came, they wanted to become journalists. I asked them, do you really understand the field that you want to join? That is the first question I asked them.
mm,
Yes, some of them understand, but not details,
okay.
because you cannot understand this field properly until you become one of them,
Yes.
until you start to practice. Because there are
Yes.
things that you just hear from the media, but you
Mm,
don't know the details, and we don't tell you everything that we pass through. So, yes, some of them say, yeah, I understand. Yeah. So I also looked from the way they respond. And
mm,
the next question is, are you ready for it? Then they will say, I am ready. Yes. And so one thing I tell them is to be brave, because
mm,
without bravery, you cannot. Because as a woman, let me say, as a woman, you face double challenges.
mm,
You face a challenge for the fact that you are a woman,
mm,
and you face another challenge for the fact that you are a journalist. And the double challenge you face, both from the work related and domestic or family related,
mm,
as a woman. So even it is premature to ask a young girl whether they are ready for it, because they will not even understand into details. But you can really see somebody who is ready to take
mm.
up the task. You can see, because I have seen many young girls we have trained, and they do journalism for 1 month, 2 weeks, they drop out because they cannot manage. The
Yeah.
pressure is too much from
Mm,
home, from office, in the field is too much. Yeah, so it requires a lot of things. It requires bravery. It requires um, you to be organized,
yeah.
and also hard work. Hard work. You need to be an hardworking person, and a
Mm,
person who don't give up. Yeah.
mm,
So will you find talent, this all this in one person? Yeah, you can find, but it is rare,
yeah.
especially for women. It is rare.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I always have a very tough discussion with young girls, who want to become, because I just don't want somebody to waste their time coming to study journalism and not practicing it. Just maybe again tomorrow they will go and start learning tailoring because they found what they went for very difficult to continue with.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, and I also always want young women or young girls to see the examples from me.
Mm.
And I struggle also to have a family. I am married.
Okay.
Uh, in most cases, journalists, female journalists,
Yeah.
some of them are not married because they cannot endure the pressure of marriage and at the same time being a journalist. Sometimes
Mm.
it is not easy. But for me to fully uh, support, help young girl, I have to endure. I have to be married so that I can also talk to them from the marital point of view.
Yeah.
And I also talk to them from the field of journalism point of view so that they can capture, so
Mm.
that I can, at least do something. I may not have all the skills, but
Mm.
what I should do, give them should balance so that at least, yeah, somebody can be, supported with how to balance between their family, social life, and also work related.
Let me pull the brakes here and thank you very much for this conversation. I've truly enjoyed it and it's been an eye opener. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Right. This has been Pens Down. Today we travel to South Sudan, the world's youngest country, and we touch base with the director of the Association for Media Development in South Sudan, AMDIS. She's Ayaa Irene Lokang. She was our guest today, and she's taken us through her journalism journeys. We've talked about a number of media matters and also picked her thoughts on some of the things that media practitioners grapple with in her side of the world. We are grateful for your time. We'll be back next time with another conversation. And we have another colleague join us, and we'll still be talking their journalism journeys. Bye for now.